Glenn, let's start with you this week, shall we? Was a point each a fair result at Old Trafford?
Yeah, I think so. Just about. I think Ralph Hasenhüttl summed it up in that they probably shaded the first half, and we shaded the second half. I was waiting for Maguire's header at the end to end up in the net, and and feel like we'd been done again in the last minute. But I think, overall, a point was a fair result. I do feel, as I said earlier, with just a little bit more belief and a little bit more composure when we got sort of near their goal. I do feel like we could have actually won it. But yeah, as I've already said, that would have been greedy. You can't be anything other than delighted with a point at Old Trafford, regardless of how sort of like badly they're playing. They've still got players who they've signed for 70, 80 million quid. I mean, I was just thinking about this. You put it into context. They signed Luke Shaw from us 7-8 years ago for 30 million quid. That's still 10 million more than we've paid for anybody 8 years later. And Jadon Sancho got their goal. He cost a bit of money, and we've competed with them throughout, and it's an object lesson that a team playing as a team can compete with 11 individuals. I also thought if you try to pick a combined 11 with Saints and Man United compared to a few years ago we'd have had maybe one, maybe two players in it, whereas I think you could make an argument now that we'd have 6 or 7 in there, the way that game was looking yesterday. So I just thought we were excellent throughout. We survived the shout out to Jack Stevens. I thought he was tremendous when he came on, because that could have been an area where it went wrong, bringing a new player in at half time, but he got up to the pace of the game pretty quickly. And so overall a totally deserved point. Thoroughly enjoyed the game, and it's always nice to see United losing their rag a little bit. I mean, the booking count was 4-0, which is unbelievable for a game up there, for them to get 4 bookings and us to get none. And the only thing I'd criticise the referee for is that he wasn't harsh enough with the cards. And we're probably going to come on to the Bruno Fernandez giving the worst audition for being a boxer you've ever seen in your life. But I think the referee was let down by VAR a little bit there. Stuart Atwell, we've had him up there before, and he's been horrendous, and he is a bit of a weak referee. But I would have taken his performance yesterday, because basically he got the majority of the decisions right, even if he didn't. It was a little bit lenient with the cards, I thought. But overall, happy days, great result.
That's a great pub conversation for later in the week as well. A Saints Man United combined 11. It'll be an interesting debate. Steve, you must have enjoyed this one. What did you make of it all?
Yeah, we were good for the most part. For me, it was only really a sort of 20-minute spell, kind of either side of their goal, where I thought we looked like we're not at this, and they were kind of running through us and creating pretty good chances. I mean, to be honest, Ronaldo should have scored that early chance. He shouldn't have given Perraud the opportunity to clear it off the line. And Forster made a good save as well, didn't he? From Ronaldo, I think, or was it from Sancho? I can't remember now. And then obviously they got the goal, and all those are in the first 20 minutes. But at the same time, we tested them a couple of times. Obviously, Adams slipped 4 yards from goal, which is unfortunate. And I think the rebound from that, I think, was the only time that Harry Maguire did anything useful as a defender, getting the block on Ward-Prowse's follow-up. But I think at the end of the day, we've grown into that game, because I think towards half time we just realised that actually this lot aren't to be feared, even at the Theatre of Dreams, as it's so called. I mean, to be honest, for United players at the moment, it's a theatre of dullness, because they're not getting an awful lot of backing from the crowd. Despite, I mean, I always find the whole sort of stereotype of, you go to the big grounds and there's no noise. Old Trafford's just really inconsistent, I find, because one year we'll go up there and it will be dead as a dormouse. It'll be deathly silent for 90 minutes, and they'll still win a routine sort of 2-0 win. Other years we'll go up there and there won't be anything in the game, but weirdly there'll be a really good atmosphere. So there's no real rhyme or reason behind it. There doesn't seem to be any logic there. But I mean, from what I could hear of it, it seemed the atmosphere was kind of all right, but it was kind of one of those sort of antagonistic, tense atmospheres, which I don't think for a home team, I don't think that ever helps. I mean, if anybody watched the Leicester game just now, the first half of that was kind of prime example. Like Leicester defenders kind of passing it around with very little confidence, and the fans already getting on their backs like 10 minutes into the game. Just doesn't never helps anybody. And I think we kind of picked up on that just before half time and realised, yeah, we can get into these. And yeah, I mean, we hit them hard right at the start of the second half. And I mean, to be honest, the chances we created in the second half, David De Gea should be coming out. We either score more goals or David De Gea should end as man of the match. But unfortunately, we've not put enough shots on target, which is obviously a complete contrast to what we did on Wednesday, where we got 10 on target and Lloris was man of the match despite being on the losing side. So yeah, good performance, good result, but also still ever so slightly frustrating, I'd say.
That's a sign of how far we've come, isn't it? Dan, you were there yesterday. Was that a brave performance from Southampton, do you think?
I thought it was. It was never going to be as good as the performance on Wednesday night, simply because how much energy they put into that game at Tottenham, the intensity of it, and it went right until the end. And Ralph said it best after the United game, actually, that for the first 45 minutes, his players looked leggy. They looked tired. Man United were finding space in behind. Steve said they wasted a couple of chances. They went ahead, and you kind of thought when that happened, right, okay, Saints look in trouble here. They're probably going to lose this 2 or 3-0. But in the grand scheme of things, they've had a brilliant week. Anyone can come to United and lose, given the quality of players they have. They're a terrible team, but they have got individual quality on the pitch. And then in the second half, they just came out a completely different team. It seemed like they'd shaken off any kind of lactic acid that had built up, and they had chances to win that game. I remember Brozier when he went through, and at first I thought, who's he trying to cross that ball to? And then it turns out it was just a terrible shot. He's tried to kind of like poke it with the outside of his boot into the far corner, but just completely mishit it. And it ended up looking like more like a cross. But I think that just shows how far. It either shows how far Southampton have come or how far Man United have fallen. It's probably 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. That they went there, they weren't at their best, and they still could have won that game. But I think Ralph would have snapped your hand off for a point before the game.
Yeah, he seemed really happy. Glen, a word on those, the front two, Adams and Brozier. Probably could have had a few more. Good partnership, but good individually as well. They seem to be bringing out the best of each other and enhancing each other's game.
Well, I think we said a few weeks ago that they'd only sort of played together maybe once in the first part of the season, and to me, it looked like a partnership that could go places, and it certainly is. It is getting better all the time. Shea Adams is on a little run at the moment where, he started scoring goals again. Brozier is just a handful. When he decides, it's almost like he needs to decide to get involved. Sometimes he didn't. I mean, Maguire was towing a caravan all game, wasn't he? I mean, he was hopeless. And when Brozier sort of went that side and was playing against Maguire and Shaw, I mean, Shaw was having another one of those games where he just couldn't be bothered to defend half the time, couldn't be bothered to run. So I would have liked, Brozier to have gone over there a little bit more and caused them a few more problems. But when he got on the ball, he's very difficult to stop. If you're not that quick, he is very, very difficult to stop. He's very quick for such a big guy, and he needs to get a little bit more composure with his finishing. But I think the two of them, if we can keep those two fit and they carry on playing as they are, we're never going to be out of games. We're always going to have the potential to score goals with those two there. And it's not just those two. The spine of the team to me now looks excellent with the two in midfield, Salisu at the back, and the goalkeeper playing well. It's a very good sort of spine of the team. And just to expand it slightly further, I love the look of our starting lineup. The last 2 games, that's our best starting lineup. You know, Elianusi and Armstrong playing on the wings, excellent. But going back to the forwards, I'm really looking forward to seeing how they, how they develop the partnership. I love the fact that Che Adams seemed to be playing slightly deeper out of the 2, and the amount of work that guy did back in his own half. Because the only time I felt like United were going to score was on the break. I didn't feel they were ever going to pick their way through us. They just didn't look good enough to do that. And a couple of times we lost the ball on the edge of their penalty area, as you do. And then you see Che Adams turning up at right back to clear the ball, and you just think that says something. The desire from that guy to get back in and help the team. But I thought that the pair of them were a right handful. But the issue with Brozier, of course, is that everyone's noticing now. So I'm almost happy when he comes off and he hasn't scored.
We did say, didn't we, previously, it's like another £1 million for every time he's going to bang in a goal.
Yeah. But, it is what it is. We know what the situation is, and that'll be a conversation for the summer. But for the rest of this season, which I think is all we can really look at for now, I'm really looking forward to seeing how those 2 carry on.
Couple of VAR incidents. Some they should have looked at, some they didn't. Steve, let's talk about that Brozier Maguire, the penalty when he stamped on his leg. If he goes down, is that a penalty, do you think?
I think it's I think the shove is probably a foul, and I think it's one that you probably get elsewhere on the pitch. But referees and fans as well and players seem to take this approach as well, that you need to there needs to be a kind of higher burden of proof in the penalty area, which there's nothing like that in the laws. But realistically, I don't. Let's face it, you're not going to Old Trafford and getting that in the 89th minute, are you, to win the game? And I don't think it was that much of a mistake from the referee that's ever going to be overturned. I think if he gives it straight up, then you're probably not pulling it back. But having not given it, I don't think VAR's overruling that at all.
We always come to you on these incidents, Dan, just to kind of have the casting vote, if you like. Do you think it was right yesterday? Nothing in it, just Maguire getting his feet in the way?
Yeah, I concur with exactly what Steve just said. I don't think I could add anything else. I think if he gives it, they're not overturning it, but they're not going to, if he doesn't give it, there's no way they're going to pull that back and give it. It really was just one of those.
And it was an interesting battle in midfield, Glen, with Bruno Fernandez throwing his fake punches around at James Ward-Prowse. What was all that about? He was definitely rattled.
Well, Fernandez, he seems to think he runs the club and he runs the refereeing and he owns everything, and he throws his arms around all game. He's a horrible player, I would imagine, if you're on his team sometimes, because he just seems to be the sort of guy who is always moaning about everything. And that incident with Ward-Prowse was a real nothing. Did someone had a throw in or something? And
Southampton throw in.
We had a throw on the halfway line.
Yeah, and he was just trying to sort of get to a space, and Prowse stood in front of him, and then a bit of wrestling goes on, and then he quite clearly throws a punch. Now it's unbelievable that in these days of VAR, the guys at Stockley Park are not going, there might be something you might want to have a look at here. It's unreal that he's got away with it. The referee can't have seen it, because any referee who sees someone throw a punch or a slap or whatever is going to do something about it. So, I don't know if they look at things retrospectively now in the days of VAR and say, hang on, we've all missed something here. And it's obviously of no use to us if he gets a retrospective ban, but he deserves it. And it was a strange old thing. Fernandez, he showed what he can do in the first half. That ball that set up the goal where he took Salisu out of the play, with that ball to Rashford, that's a brilliant ball, and that's what he's good at. But it was interesting to see Paul Scholes on BT Sport afterwards highlighting the fact
he wasn't happy, was he, Paul Scholes?
No, he just said he doesn't hold his position, and that's part of the problem that United have got. But that's their problem. Don't care about that. But it's been good that I wouldn't say we've targeted him, but we've wound him up in both games this season. It was Jack Stevens in the home game, and obviously it was Prowse in this game. But I just think Prowse was closest to him at the time. He seemed to be getting more and more help as the game went on. But it's, you know, we've criticised us for being too nice in the past, and if you've got a player on the other team that's easy to wind up, then, you know, go and do it. It's part of the game.
And just a word on Jack Stevens, Dan. I know we've talked about him quite a bit in the past, but coming on at half time, a change that you were probably a little bit nervous. I think we were all like, oh gosh, this could go either way. But what did you make of his performance in that second half?
No, I thought he was really good. I know fans seem to get nervous whenever Jack Stevens comes on the pitch, but when you go back to the start of the season, how good he was with Salisu at the beginning, you know, and everyone was kind of up in arms when he was injured against Man City because he'd been brilliant up until that point. So I do think he is a very good defender. I mean, he's probably not a top 10 defender, but he's a good defender. And yeah, he came on. You'd think that, he's not played properly, probably at this intensity for a little while, so he's going to struggle. But he just sat right in, and I think that's probably the Salisu effect. Maybe I think because Salisu is just so good and is playing so well at the moment that Stevens automatically comes on. You can be confident knowing that you've got him beside you, who is only on one way, and that's going up at the moment. So I imagine that plays into it. But then he's also got Kyle Walker-Peters, again, excellent. And Perot, who's probably had his best week in the Southampton shirt. And we're going to get onto that Tottenham game in a minute. But the defence as a unit is playing very, very well. And Ralph has got, he wanted this 2 players for every position. So realistically, it should be quite seamless. If Bednarek goes out, Stevens come in, it should be a seamless transition. And that's exactly what it was in the second half at Old Trafford.